There's a moment, quiet, unglamorous, and nothing like what you imagined, when the narcissist's entire constructed world stops holding together. Not in front of a crowd, not with you watching. Alone, usually, maybe in a car, maybe at 2 a.m. staring at a ceiling in a room they convinced someone else to pay for. The mask isn't just slipping, it's shattered, and for a few raw, unguarded minutes, even they can feel it. And the very first thing they do in that moment, before they strategize, before they spin a new story, before they find someone new to blame, is reach for a person, a specific kind of person. If you've been through a relationship with a narcissist, you already sense there's something important in that detail. Because whether you were discarded, whether you finally walked away, or whether you're still trying to make sense of what happened to you, some part of you has wondered, what did they do when it all fell apart? Did they feel it? Did they reach for me? Did I even cross their mind? This video isn't about feeding obsession, it's about ending it, by showing you exactly what happens inside a narcissist's collapse, who they run to, and what that choice reveals about the entire relationship you shared with them. Because once you understand it, something shifts, the wondering stops, and the healing actually begins. Most people assume a narcissist's collapse looks dramatic. A public unraveling, tears, some visible reckoning with who they've been. But that's not how it works. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the foremost clinical psychologists researching narcissism, describes the narcissistic collapse not as an emotional breakthrough, but as a supply failure. The scaffolding that holds their self-image together, the admiration, the control, the carefully curated perception others hold of them, has given way. And because a narcissist's entire sense of self is built externally on what other people reflect back to them, losing that reflection doesn't just hurt their feelings, it destabilizes their identity. Think of it like a building whose entire structural integrity depends on the lights inside being on. The moment the power cuts out, it's not just dark. The walls start to feel uncertain. That's what collapse feels like for a narcissist. Not grief, not guilt, structural terror. And that terror has one immediate instinct attached to it. Find a source of supply. Fast. Here's what the outside world never sees. In the hours or days following that collapse, a narcissist enters what psychologists describe as a supply emergency. The grandiosity, the charm, the practiced calm, none of those tools are available to them right now. They are, for a brief window, genuinely desperate. And desperate people don't make sophisticated choices. They reach for whatever is closest, most familiar, and most likely to give them what they need without asking too many questions. This is critical to understand, because it means the person they run to first is not chosen out of love, not out of respect, not even out of genuine preference. They are chosen out of function. And that distinction between being loved and being used is one that so many people who've been in these relationships have spent years trying to untangle. So who do they actually run to? And what does that person look like? In most cases, it's one of three archetypes. The first is someone from their past. An ex-partner, an old friend, someone they discarded years ago who never fully closed the door. Narcissists often maintain what trauma therapists call a supply roster, a mental list of people who once gave them what they needed and might again. After a collapse, they scroll back through that list and find whoever still has the most warmth left toward them. If you've ever received a message from a narcissist out of nowhere, months or years after the relationship ended, you've likely experienced being pulled from that list. The second archetype is someone who witnessed the collapse itself. A coworker who saw them fail, a mutual friend who was present when the facade broke, someone who now holds a version of the narcissist that the narcissist cannot allow to exist unchallenged. They will pursue this person, not to apologize, but to rewrite the narrative, to become, in that person's eyes, the sympathetic victim of whatever just happened to them. The third, and perhaps most telling, is someone entirely new. Someone who has no prior version of the narcissist to compare against, no history to reference, No moment of seeing behind the curtain. A blank slate. According to research on narcissistic attachment patterns, this fresh start supply is the most potent because it allows the narcissist to rebuild the persona from scratch. No repair needed, no accountability required, just a new audience and a new performance. And here is the part that will either sting or set you free, depending on where you are in your healing. The person they run to first almost never is you. Even if you were the most significant relationship they've had, and not because you didn't matter, but precisely because you saw too much. You knew them at a level that collapses the fantasy they need to rebuild. Your presence reminds them of what they actually are, not what they want to perform. That's not a reflection of your worth. It is, in the clearest possible way, a confirmation of it. Trauma expert Pete Walker writes that when we've been in close relationship with a narcissist, one of the most disorienting parts of recovery is realizing that the intimacy we felt was largely one-directional. We saw them, they saw a mirror, and when the mirror starts reflecting something they don't like, when you began to see through the performance, you stopped being useful in the way they needed. Your insight into them was never something they valued, it was something they feared. So what do you do with all of this? First, you let yourself feel whatever this brings up, because for some people, learning they weren't the person chosen is a relief, and for others, it surfaces a grief that's been sitting just beneath the surface. Both responses are valid. Both make sense. Then you do something more important. You stop organizing your healing around what they did next. Who they ran to, what story they're telling now, whether the new person will figure it out. None of that is yours to carry. Your nervous system has been trained, through months or years of this relationship, to track them, to monitor, to stay alert for what they might do. That hypervigilance kept you safe inside the relationship. It no longer serves you outside of it. The shift that marks the beginning of real recovery isn't when you stop loving them, it's when you stop needing to know. When the question of who they called first starts to feel less urgent than the question of what you need today. You were never meant to be the person who caught them when they fell. That was never the role you deserved, no matter how convincingly they cast you in it. The collapse that happened after you, or without you, was not your failure to prevent. It was simply the inevitable consequence of a life built on performance rather than truth. And you, the one who chose honesty, who brought your full self to a relationship that could never fully receive it, you are not in collapse. You are in recovery, and those are two very different destinations. Their spiral brought them back to the beginning. Your walk through this is taking you somewhere new. Give yourself the grace to keep going.